The desert at night feels nothing like the desert by day. By day, it is blinding, endless, suffocating heat. By night, it is a void, an ocean of sand under a sky so wide and black it swallows you whole. Every sound carries for miles, the crunch of footsteps, the whisper of wind through dry brush, and every shadow feels out of place. That's where we were, 4 of us, camping somewhere deep in the Mojave Desert. We weren't professionals, but Derek had talked us into it. The desert is the best place to see the stars, he said, and he was right. By the time we set up camp and the sun fell, the sky above was endless, littered with more stars than I had ever seen in my life. We built a fire, cooked our food, and laughed until the cold set in. The desert chills quickly after dark. By midnight, the warmth of the fire was our only comfort. That's when we saw it. Far beyond our camp, maybe half a mile away, a faint glow flickered on the horizon. Another fire. At first, we felt relieved. Out here, miles from towns or roads, it was comforting to know someone else was nearby. We debated whether to walk over and say hello, maybe share a drink, maybe even trade stories. But something about the fire seemed strange. It was too still, too isolated, sitting alone in the dunes. We decided to check it out anyway. With our flashlights in hand, we trekked across the sand. The glow grew brighter, closer, but as we walked, it never seemed to get there. It was always just a little farther away, sitting on the next rise of sand, just out of reach. Are we going in circles? Emily asked, shivering. No, Derek said, frowning. It's right there. We're almost. When we crested the next dune, the fire wasn't there. It was behind us. We turned, stunned. The glow now flickered from the direction of our camp, right where we had come from. That's impossible, I whispered. We hurried back, our pace quickening. But the closer we came, the more wrong everything felt. Our own fire was still burning in the camp, but the other glow remained, a second fire, burning only a few yards from our tents. We froze, watching as the flames flickered unnaturally, almost too tall, almost too bright. There was no smoke. And then it vanished. One moment, a roaring flame. The next, nothing but empty sand. We didn't speak. We didn't move. We just sat by our own fire until exhaustion finally dragged us into restless sleep. When dawn came, the desert looked ordinary again. The sun blazed across the dunes. The fire pit was nothing but cold ash, and the world felt deceptively safe. But then Emily screamed. In the sand, just beyond our camp, was a circle. Perfectly round, burned into the ground as if by heat. Inside the circle were markings, crude, jagged symbols none of us recognized. We stared at them, trying to make sense of what we were seeing. They weren't letters, they weren't numbers, they were warnings. Or maybe instructions. We buried the markings with sand, but deep down we knew it was useless. Something had been there. Something had come into our camp in the middle of the night, burning its mark into the earth. We left the desert that day, cutting our trip short. None of us argued. None of us wanted to stay another night. But the image of that fire still haunts me. Because every time I close my eyes, I don't just see the glow in the distance. I see the circle, the symbols. And I can shake the feeling that the fire wasn't just meant to lure us. It was meant to call something. Driving through the desert at night is a different kind of isolation. By day, the horizon stretches endlessly in all directions. Mountains in the far distance, the shimmer of heat rising off the asphalt. But at night, the world becomes black. The headlights carve out a narrow tunnel of vision, and beyond the tunnel is nothing. No towns, no streetlights, no signs of life at all. Just the hum of your engine and the thought that if something went wrong out here, nobody would find you. That's exactly where we were. My friend Kyle and I had been driving across Arizona on a road trip, cutting through the desert on one of those endless highways where you can go an hour without passing another car. It was after midnight when we finally pulled over, exhausted, and decided to rest. We parked on the side of the road near an empty stretch of desert. The sky above was clear, the stars sharp and endless. We set our seats back, rolled the windows down a little for air, and tried to sleep. At some point, I woke. I don't know what stirred me. Maybe the silence, maybe some instinct. When I opened my eyes, I froze. There was a figure on the horizon, far out in the desert, illuminated faintly by the moonlight, was a man. At first, I thought I was dreaming. He was just walking, slowly, steadily, toward us. I nudged Kyle awake. "There's someone out there." He groaned, annoyed, but then sat up and looked. His expression changed instantly. "What the hell?" We both stared. The man kept walking, his pace steady, his direction unchanging. There was no road out there, no train, no car, just endless sand. And yet, here he was, walking toward us in the dead of night. Maybe he needs help. Kyle whispered, though he didn't sound convinced. I shook my head. Something about him didn't feel right. sat frozen, listening. The whispers were clearer now. Some were low and guttural, others higher, almost childlike. Words we couldn't understand, tangled together in a chorus that made the hairs on my neck stand up. Finally, against every instinct, Derek grabbed a flashlight. "I want to see what's out there." We stepped outside the tent. The desert stretched around us, empty under the moonlight. No movement, no figures, just the endless rippling dunes. But the whispers hadn't stopped. They were louder now, rising and falling like a chant. Then Tyler noticed something. He pointed to the sand, just a few feet from camp. Look, the ground was shifting. Small depressions formed and collapsed, as if something moved just beneath the surface. My stomach dropped. Without thinking, Derek knelt down and brushed at the sand with his hands. I hissed at him to stop, but he kept digging until the flashlight beamed on something there. The unknown part of a human skull, the sand clinging to the jagged edges, beneath it, more fragments, ribs, the bones of someone long dead, hidden just beneath the tents. Whispers surged, frantic, over tired to think. For the first time all day, I felt relief. But that relief didn't last. Sometime in the night, I woke. Not to a sound, not to a nightmare, but to a feeling. The kind of cold dread that grips your stomach before your mind catches up. The lamp beside the bed was on. I knew we had turned it off before sleeping. Beside me, Jenna stirred, blinking. She noticed the light too. Then we both froze. There were voices in the hallway, soft, indistinct, more than one. Jenna whispered, "Do you hear that?" I nodded, heart racing. The voices grew louder, closer, until they were right outside our door. A shuffle of footsteps, a low laugh, and then silence. I forced myself to peek through the curtain. The parking lot was empty. The two dusty cars were gone. Our car was the only one there. That's when the doorknob rattled. Just once, a sharp metallic click that froze us in place. Then, nothing. We didn't sleep after that. We stayed awake until the first pale light of dawn crept through the curtains. When the sun was high enough, in a rush of desperation, and the front desk After what felt like hours, the footsteps faded. When morning came, the camp was eerily normal. The sun was bright, the canyon glowing in shades of red and gold. For a moment, I convinced myself it had all been in my head. Then Emily screamed. We rushed to her tent. She was standing outside, pointing at the dirt, footprints. All around her tent. Bare, human-like, pressed deep into the dust. They circled, stopped at the entrance, then continued on. We followed the tracks out of camp. They led back toward the ridge, and when we looked up, our blood ran cold. The ridge was empty, no figures, no watchers, nothing but rock. We left that morning without discussion, packed in silence, hiked until our legs burned. None of us looked back. But sometimes, late at night,